Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka. Today is July 13th, 2025. And a lot to get to in today's show. Heat warning outside and Bitcoin pumping in a heat wave inside. On today's show, Bitcoin hits fresh all-time high and Saylor and Kiyosaki want to buy more. Also, Bitcoin to add another 0 million BTC, advocates Samson Mao. All this and so much more on today's show. Welcome again, folks. As mentioned, a lot to get to in today's show. Let's get right into some technical analysis. We have the Bitty just under an all-time high. All-time high was hit today just under 120 grand. And I suspect we might be able to hit that overnight. Right now, sitting at 119,000 even. Ethereum just under 3 grand at 29.70. Solana up 0.25%, $160. XRP up 3.5%. Of course, XRP has been one of the big winners, along with XLM and a few other coins recently in the past week. Right now, XRP $2.83. Doge just under 20 cents. Taking a look at crypto bubbles for today. Pengu, pudgy little penguins, huge winner this week, up 28%. XLM, 20%, HBAR, 22%, Algorand, up 20% for the day. For the week, we've got Pudgy Penguins up 90%, Memecore up 550%, Algorand, 50%, Mog Coin, never heard of it, up 90%, Doge up 16%, pretty much everything, not pretty much, every single coin up for the week here. And for the month, we've got Pudgy Penguins up 200%, HBAR 52%, XLM 81%, and Bonk 75%, Algorand just under 50%. Taking a look at the market caps, we've got Bitcoin at $2.34 trillion, Ethereum $356 billion, XRP $159 billion, Solana $86 billion, Doge $30 billion, Tron $28 billion, Cardano $25 billion market cap. And taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance, we've got 63.8% dominance for Bitcoin, 9.6% for Ethereum. And this is interesting because generally what happens when the markets start pumping, the Bitcoin dominance, at least historically, has gone down even to as much as 55, 56% because people are putting their money into these alternative coins, and the market share on Bitcoin goes down, the alts kind of go up. And the theory there is that once the Bitcoin price goes up, lots of people make money, and then they start looking down the chain. Where else can I make money? Of course, the next place is Ethereum. And once Ethereum pumps, then a whole lot of shit coins start pumping along with it. So interesting that it's still at 64%, which is as high as it's been. Really, it's been hovering around 63, 64.5% for many, many months, 6 months, even more than that. M2 money supply. We've got the money supply in pink from 21 central banks around the world, the largest central banks. And we've got the Bitcoin price in white. And we see that, as usual, the price of Bitcoin's following super close to the M2 money supply. And right here at the end, there's normally about a trailing 3 months. So What we see in the M2 money supply, we generally will see after 3 months, we'll see that in the biddy. So look at this pump right here. So potentially we're going to be seeing this very shortly in Bitcoin. As you know, that's understating what it did in the past week, up about 12 grand, I suppose, in a week. But there's still a lot of room to pump. We'll get into some further analysis. I did some charting where we can look at that as well and see what the forecasting does based on historical price charting, and then looking forward what it might do this cycle. M2 money supply just for the US, we see it's way up. This only goes back, it's not up to date, 100% current, a couple months back, but we see May, it's way up, continually up and up and up and up, and it just keeps going up. Now with the big beautiful bill, we know that another $3.3 trillion are going to be added to the debt ceiling. Where are they going to get the money? They are going to get the money from money printing. So look for this M2 money supply to spike. And last time, what happened when the M2 spiked last cycle in 2020, 2021, the price of Bitcoin went, parabolic. So we are reaching the banana zone, as they call it. Looking at the total hash rate compared to the Bitcoin, the hash rate is in blue and the price is in black. So we see generally the price of Bitcoin follows the hash rate, and we see the hash rate is pumping, boy. Now it still isn't at the all-time high, but look at these. This is pretty close to a very consistent chart here, up and down, up and down. So I wouldn't be surprised if we also hit the all-time high in hash rate, and we might break that elusive 100 or 1 billion terahashes per second coming up soon. Crypto Fear and Greed Index shows us we are at a 68 in greed, which is interesting because you would think we'd be at extreme greed considering all the all-time highs, but no, we're just in the regular green zone. Yesterday was a 69 in greed, and last week a 50 in neutral. We have 1,003 days until the next Bitcoin halving and in 2028, and 144,577 blocks until that halving. Looking at the global assets in terms of market cap, gold still above 22 trillion, 22.5 trillion, Nvidia 4 trillion. I haven't seen them hit 4 trillion for quite some time. Microsoft at 3.7 trillion, Apple 3.1 trillion, Amazon 2.388, Bitcoin 2.37. So very close to flipping Amazon. It might happen tomorrow. Silver 2.192 trillion, exactly the same as Google. And Meta at number 9, 1.8 trillion. Saudi Aramco oil, 1.6 trillion bucks. You can currently get 840 Satoshis for one fiat US dollar, which is the lowest I have ever seen Satoshis to US dollars. And this number is just going to keep going lower and lower and lower to the time where, when this gets to 100, Bitcoin's going to be at 10 million bucks. Pardon me, when it gets to 100, it's going to be 1 million. When it gets to 10, it's going to be 10 million. When it gets to 1 to 1, the price of Bitcoin is going to be $100 million. So stack those stats. U.S. national debt, killing it as usual, over the $37 trillion mark, 37.1 trillion bucks, equaling 108,208 per U.S. citizen, or 323,052 per U.S. payer. The Doge clock without Elon still continues to pump, currently saving U.S. citizens $554 million, equaling $4,939 per taxpayer since its outset in January. So big savings and big things happening in the crypto sphere. Now let's take a look further into some forecasting. We have, who isn't forecasting Bitcoin to go to $1 million? Everybody is. It's just a matter of when, right? So taking a look at some math that I've done on TradingView. Everybody's got access to this TradingView, free to open an account. So you can open it up, mess with it. There's also an app, which is what I use, also free. If you want more than one layout, you can pay for it. Personally, I don't. I've got the one layout. But let's look at the historical charting. Okay. So what I have here, these vertical lines in blue are the exact halving dates, right? So just as far as the 2016 halving. So 2016, 2020, and 2024 halving dates. And then I've got the Bollinger Bands here indicating the halving price and then the all-time high. And I also have it written up here for clarity. So halving price, $650. All-time high for that period, that cycle, which happened in December of 2017, $15,000. So that's a 23x. Now, going to 2020, exact same thing, halving price right there, $8,821. All-time high for that cycle, $69,000. So that's an 8x. Now, let's look at some forecasting here. What's going to actually happen this cycle? Because this is what we really care about. It's nice to see historical stuff, but what's going on now? Let's expand this a bit. So I have two bands here. One is looking at potentially a 2.7x. Why a 2.7x? So we've got 23 times 23x in 2016, 8x in 2020. So if we divide that number by that number, we get 2.7. So let's just, for shits and giggles, let's do this for clarity. Will the Bitcoin price during one halving cycle continue this insane pace where it, 23x's? Because it seems that every cycle, the amount of percentage increase that it does seems a little less. So I took the 23 divided by 8, you got 2.7. So here we have the halving price on the date of the halving in April 2024. And if we multiply that by 2.7x, we've got this price right here, which ends up to 172,800, right? If we took the same 8x and said, okay, it's going to 8x this time too, like it did in 2016, then we're looking at a price of 510K. Personally, I feel like it's going to be somewhere in between that. If we get to 172, it's almost predicted that this is the kind of price increase we're going to get, right? Instead of 23x, it went down to 8x, and this time to 2.7x, or we'll call it close to 3x, so around 172 grand. On a high end, even though I have 8x here, I would be surprised if it pumps that much for one cycle. I'm thinking it's probably going to be 2.7x to maybe 4x, right? So in between, 172 grand up to 250, potentially 300 grand. Now, one thing that's also stayed consistent is the date of the all-time highs, right? So typically it's the following year after the halving between October and December. So here we've got the same thing. The first one, or no, it's not the first. The first was 2012, but in 2016, the cycle peak was December, the year after the halving. In 2017, in 2021, the cycle peak was end of October 2021, the year after the halving. So I also have it listed here, October of this year, the year after the halving, to hit this $172,000. What's interesting is if we just change the look of this to get a better view. All right, so that's, I think, a better view of what actually happens. We can see the ups and downs a little more than this, flat. You can just adjust this how you want, right? So here we go. Let's widen it out a bit too. So in 2020 halving, we had the price have this double peak, right? First peak was in April, and then the final peak after a dip was October, end of October. So here we go in 2025, right? This is February, and this is currently where we are now. I feel like there's been a bit of a change in the way these cycles work this time around. I really do. In previous cycles, we didn't have institutional adoption. We didn't have guys like Saylor putting in billions and billions of dollars. We didn't have nation states saying, we're going to buy, 1 million Bitcoins. We're going to stockpile Bitcoin. We're going to have a Bitcoin reserve. So I feel like this cycle is a little bit different. Okay, so back here in 2021, we hit the mid-cycle peak, April. I feel like we're starting now to get to this mid-cycle peak. And I feel like the mid-cycle peak is coming later than it did in this period. All right, this was April, and now we're already into July. And have we really hit this mid-cycle peak? It's hard to say. Is this the mid-cycle peak? I feel like it's not, right? This just seems like things are backed up. And people are also calling, the experts. And, for argument's sakes, when somebody calls themselves an expert, then you're basically fucked. Don't listen to them, right? Like, in my show, I'm not an expert. You're listening to me because I'm as dumb as everybody, and I'm not pretending to be some super genius crypto theologist, and I'm going to predict the price of Bitcoin for the next 100 years. No, right? For us, for me, the idea here in Bitcoin and for all these cryptos has nothing to do with being a genius. It has to do with a little bit of experience, and mostly what it has to do is the old adage, buy low, sell high, right? So if you got in over here, right, at, 20 grand, you wouldn't give a shit what was happening now. Why the hell would you care? You, from this point, were sitting on your couch doing nothing, waiting for the price to come up, right? If you're buying in here, right, or here where we are now, there's something to be said for dollar cost averaging, and I would highly recommend it for everybody. And, dollar cost average into Bitcoin, dollar cost average into Ethereum, XRP, excellent ways to go, right? So also, you don't really care too much if the prices are fluctuating day to day. You're in it for the long haul. But if you're looking to spend half your life's savings and drop it right now into frickin' Bitcoin or some shit coin, even worse, you're either going to make a ton of money or you're going to get wrecked, right? There's people that are shorting Bitcoin right now. Oh, it's an all-time high. I'm going to short. Are you an idiot? Like, this historically is showing us that these 4-year cycles are continuing, right? There's no change to that. It's been pretty consistent. 4-year cycles. The year after the halving, October to December, is the cycle peak, right? Just the same way that approximately a year and a month or two after the cycle peak, the all-time highs, is the cycle low. And here we can see it very easily. Let's go all the way back to the 2017 height, right? 2017, and then a year, right? Exact. So December 2017, and here is December 2018, a year after, and kind of between there and this 3-month period, right? A year and a year to a year and 2 or 3 months, and then the price starts to go up again. Going back again here, again, we're seeing this consistency. Cycle peak, October 2021, the year after the halving. Cycle low, about a year and 2 months, like I said, after the all-time high, right? So when I look at this stuff, I break it down like this. I'm not breaking it down to rocket science. I'm doing the basics. I'm a fucking idiot. Like, do not follow me for financial advice, right? Like, this is the way you have to look at it. Consider this a disclaimer. Why would you be looking at me for financial advice? No, right? You need to do your own analysis. But when it comes to looking at this historical pattern, this is very clear. And it's right here in the charting. I'm not making this up. This is all here for everybody to see, right? So there's a point for sure where coming up soon, we're going to have everybody and their aunt and their grandparents and their moms, and they're going to come to them and they're going to say, hey, have you seen Bitcoin? It's going way up. Should I put my money into it? When this starts happening, that's almost an indicator when it's time to get out, okay? It's not even in the news yet. You don't hear anything about Bitcoin. You hear it in the Bitcoin forums. You hear different things going on. If you look for BitcoinNews, maybe if you've, on YouTube, you've got it in your algorithm and it keeps popping up because you've, searched for Bitcoin, and they basically, YouTube and all these Instagram are taking your information and using it against you so they can put catered advertisement toward you so they can sell you shit, right? Like, this is what's happening now with our data, whether you like it or not. So the regular folk, though, they don't hear anything about Bitcoin. They don't hear anything about crypto. The only time they're going to start hearing it is maybe now when, in the business report, for the 5 seconds at the end of the business report, they're going to say something like, and Bitcoin hit an all-time high today, right? And this is what they hear. So this for them might be, oh, this is time for us to get, oh, hey, did you hear about Bitcoin? Did you hear about Bitcoin? Once the retail investors take note of Bitcoin, because right now, in terms of history, there's pretty much no residential or retail investing, There's none. I mean, there's some, but when we compare it against, I saw some charts, when we compare it against history, it's way down, right? So currently we're working off the back of strictly institutional investing. We're working on the back of all this news that we keep hearing every day, how where there's a new company and they're putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And BlackRock now is at 700,000 Bitcoins owned. Saylor, MicroStrategy, 600,000 Bitcoins, right? Once even more money keeps flowing into this, i.e. pension funds, nation states around the world, beyond, the U.S., we're talking Middle East, we're talking Asia, it's going to get into the news. Once retail gets wind of this and feel like they're missing, right, the old FOMO, fear of missing out, then money, even more money is going to start flowing into this. And currently we are at the all-time high in price, and we're also at the all-time high in terms of market cap for crypto on a whole, which last cycle was at $3.7 trillion. And right now we are sitting at very close to that for all of crypto. Let's see what we've got. We have a total market cap of, I'm pretty sure it's $3.7 trillion. I saw it earlier. I can't find it in my charting right now. Oh, there it is, 3.69 trillion bucks. So right here, 3.69. It was at 3.74 earlier today or last night. So 3.7. So we're currently sitting at the all-time high in terms of complete market cap, not just crypto, but everything altogether combined. And we're sitting at an all-time high price or close to it. This is when people are going to start getting wind of this. This is when, as I said, all your relatives are going to start calling you because you're the informed one, you're the young one, you're the one that tracks all this. And what do we tell them, right? Do we say, great, buy some Bitcoin? Or do we tell them, stay the fuck away because you're going to get wrecked because you're buying the shit way up here when you should have been buying it when it was way down here? This is my kind of investing, right? This is stupid investing. This is for any, Tom, Dick, and Jerry that can take the basics and not trying to day trade this shit and not trying to, be smarter than anybody else. This is basic fundamental investing. You buy it at the low and you just sit there. You sit there, you don't do shit. You sit there and you wait for everybody else who said, no, I would never buy Bitcoin. It's going out of favor. It's going to zero, right? Which is exactly what they did, the last cycle low. No fucking way. I'm not putting my money into Bitcoin. It's going to zero, right? And the smart people were putting their money into Bitcoin. The institutional investors are definitely going to be putting their money into Bitcoin this time around. And they're just sitting there on their couch, and now they're up, how many X? From 16,500 to 120, right? Substantial, right? 120 divided by 16.5. Divided by 16.5. They're up 7x, right? We could all use a little 7x. So, in terms of financial advice, nothing changes. The financial advisors, and I cringe when I say this, they're right. You cannot look at this like a short-term investment. You have to look and have a long time frame for this stuff. You have to be patient. You have to be strong and tough. It's all about being smart, right? And tough, and having the balls to say, shit, the price is up and down. I bought down here. I could have sold right here and made so much money. And you have to refrain from doing that. You need a long approach on this thing, because that's what it is. And every 4 years is this cycle. So you have to look at this in 4-year time frames, right? If you buy now, let's say you bought some here right at the top, and tomorrow the price tanks, and just for argument's sakes, right now is the cycle peak, which I feel like it's not, but let's say right now is the cycle peak, and it goes all the way down to here, right? What a fool would do is he would sell it and say, oh, that's it, it's going to zero. What a savvy investor would do would hold on to it and buy more. Okay? Then your average price is coming down, and you buy more and more and more, and you buy it at this low price. And then, as mentioned, I love this analogy of just sitting on the couch, and you spend a little bit of time every month, and you look at it and you make some money. Michael Saylor, if you guys haven't listened to it, he had about a 2-hour interview with Jordan Peterson, the famous psychologist, right? And Saylor talked a lot, and I learned a lot about Saylor and his history, which you don't hear that much in the public. But he kind of went through his entire history and how he even started buying Bitcoin. So what had happened is he pretty much worked his whole life to create this $500 million company, MicroStrategy. He put everything into it. He put his time, he put his effort, and no matter what he could do, he got to number 2 ERP software company in the world, right? But no matter what he could do and what he did, he was just staying number 2, because of course Microsoft is number 1. How are you going to touch this, right? All the other players went out of business. He was still there with his $500 million company. And he went around the world and he advertised as much as he could. He went around the world and did seminars and talked about his company and tried to sell and sell and sell. No matter what he did after his travels around the world, after all the money he dumped in advertising and selling, and it just stayed a $500 million company. Then COVID comes along, and every mom and pop shop suddenly is going out of business, right? You guys remember that. Walmart's doing great because they say Walmart can stay open, and supermarkets are doing great. But every bank was working from home. Everybody was working from home, and every mom and pop brick and mortar store in your neighborhood was closed, and they were all suddenly going out of business one by one. Meanwhile, these Wall Street tycoons were sitting at their home, probably, next to their pool or in their pool in the Hamptons. And once Powell announces that the interest rates, we're going to lower interest rates to 0, and we're not going to raise them until 2024. That's exactly what he announced, right? So interest rates go to 0. Suddenly, these guys in the fucking Hamptons are sitting on their asses, on their little girly, pink flamingo floats in their pool, and they're 10xing their portfolios by sitting on their freaking couch doing nothing. Meanwhile, Saylor's company is ready to go under, like all the other mom and pop shops. And he's saying to himself, like, I cannot go out like this. I have to fucking do something. This is my life's work. I can't get past 500 million bucks, but now this shit is sinking and there's no way I'm going to sink with it. I have to do something. I have to figure something out. So he looked at these, low lives in Hamptons. And look, when I say low lives, maybe I'm a little jealous, right? If you can make money in investing, more power to you. So he looked at these people and they're, Wall Street moguls sitting in their Hampton mansions, and they're sitting there 10xing their portfolios while Saylor and the rest of the world is going out of business. So while sitting at home, he was like, fuck, I haven't really done this in the past, but let me try to do some investing. So he took 25 million bucks and he invested. He put in about an hour a month is what he said. And an hour a month, sitting on his couch, he was able to turn that $25 million portfolio into $500 million. Imagine. He worked all those years to build this company to get it to 500 million bucks. And then within a year, sitting on his ass, working an hour a month, he makes $500 million, the equivalent to his life's work. And he was like, you know what? I'm doing shit the wrong way. There's more to this. Why did I work all these years just to finally conclude that these guys are sitting on their asses, making huge money while I'm busting my ass day and night? Again, I encourage you to this is just, I'm paraphrasing here, right? You should watch the whole Jordan Peterson. I am in no way affiliated with either of these guys, but I would highly recommend it. It's a good watch. What do I need to do to make this kind of money in the future without having to bust my ass? And he looked inside and he looked outside and he thought of, the stock market, and he was like, no, the stock market's losing money if you think about it. Every year as the money printer, prints, your money's worth less and less due to money debasement. I mean, the stock market might tell you, your portfolio tells you made money, but if you put into account your inflation, did you really make money, or you're still losing money, right? They tell you it's 2-3% inflation, but in actuality, it's probably more like 9 to 12% inflation, because this basket of goods they base it on keeps changing. They don't base it on the same basket of goods. It's I forget the term for it, but basically every once in a while they change it. So this thing is skewed, right? You can't trust it. So no, I'm not going to go for stock market. Okay, what about silver? What about gold? Well, again, you're not really doing much with gold or silver. You're maybe making, 2, 3, 5% a year. It's kind of similar to stock market gains. And then he remembered his somebody who was trying to orange pill him on Bitcoin years back. I think it was in 2016, and he called them up and he said, you know what? Can you tell me more about this Bitcoin stuff? Maybe I'm interested. And this is where he got the idea to start his Bitcoin-backed company, right? So he started buying in 2020, right around here, right? 2020, we've got the whole COVID, 2019, 2020, and probably right around here, I think is where he said May or June is when he started buying. And probably when it got to here, he said, man, I'm on to something. And he just kept buying and buying and buying, and everybody tells him he's crazy, and the price dips. And are you crazy buying more? No, I'm not crazy. I'm buying the dip. Right now, the price, it's on sale. Why would I stop? Buying, right? And he's on pace to become the world's first trillionaire. So when Bitcoin gets to $1 million, and again, it's not an if anymore, it's a when, And the experts, right, are calling for the next Bitcoin halving cycle. So the year after the halving, of course, halving is 2028. So in 2029, they're calling for this $1 million Bitcoin. We've yet to see exactly how this is going to turn out this cycle. But again, anywhere between 170 to around 250, 300 is my kind of guess based on historical results. Again, not financial advice, but if we look at the history, that's probably what we're going to see. 170, what I had in the Bollinger Bands there, it was 173 to 510. I don't feel like this 510 is in play. I just have a hard time believing that we're going to go up like 23x or 8x. Can we conceivably go up 3.5x instead of the 2.7x? Yes. So that would bring us at, the price at the halving date, and then times, we'll call it 3.5x, 223 grand. So I think realistically, we're looking between that 173 and 250K. For me, this is my point. And again, if you were able to get in over here and you sold at between 173 and 250, and the price continued to go up to 500 grand, could you really be upset? Yes, you left something on the table, but could you be upset if you bought at 16.5 and you sold at 200, right? And it went up to 500. This is the kind of scenario and outlook you want to look at. Okay, I mean, if you bought, looking at 2020 here, if you bought down here and you sold right here, okay, on this red line, and the price continued to go up, so you sold at 40, we'll say 45 grand in this orange area, and the price went to 60 something, and you're like, fuck, I just put 30,000, I could have made so much more money. Could you really be that upset when you got in at 3,500 bucks, right? So this is the idea with investing. When you're talking about any kind of investing, this is similar, right? This is no different than basic fundamental economics. You have to use basic investing principles, basic financial literacy in all this, right? Something else you really want to consider if you're think about, when talking about financial literacy, the number one thing you need to look at is your expenses versus what you take in, right? Even if you're bringing in 100 grand a month, right? Let's get extreme here. You're bringing in, you've got a $1.2 million job a year, right? Nobody's got this, but let's just go to the extreme, right? You're bringing 100 grand. If you're spending 120 grand a month and you're bringing in 100 grand a month, like some of these fools do, you're still going in the fucking hole, right? So using that extreme model, it doesn't matter if you're bringing in 100 grand a month or if you're bringing in, like everybody else, 5 grand or 4 grand a month, right? After they tax the shit out of you. If you're spending more than you're bringing in, it's not a good look. And retirement is probably never going to happen for you. I'm sorry to break it, but you're never going to fucking retire. You're going to sit there and you're going to work till you're 80, and you're going to, who knows what's going to happen, right? This is what these, guys are croaking on the street on the way home from work. They're 85 years old and they're still fucking working instead of sitting in the Bahamas or, the Mediterranean or something in some modest little house, but living within their means. This is how you have to look at everything. Okay? If you want to retire young, you want to retire smart, the whole world is telling you to buy shit you don't need, right? But when you talk to the richest people in the world, they tell you, don't fucking buy it. Don't waste your money on that. Don't waste your money on this. It's a waste. It's a waste. Don't do it, right? There used to be a time, and I've said this before, where things were made well, things had value. You'd buy one good thing, and it would last, right? Now, the way they push everything is you'll buy one piece of plastic crap, and then in 3 years, you'll replace it with another identical piece of fancier crap, right? You'll still have it, but no, I need a pretty one. I need a newer one. I need a better one. I saw this at my neighbor's. I saw this at the party, and I'm going to get this one, right? Or cars, another, total. These guys you see driving Lambos, they're not millionaires, guys. They're 100 millionaires. Okay, they're not buying a fucking Lambo for $500,000 if all they've got is $1 million. No, right? Stay modest. Stay, within your means. This is the most important thing when it comes to your retirement, when it comes to everything, right? You like vacationing? Awesome, right? Have a saving fund just for vacation. But in an ideal situation, you're not your paycheck, you're not spending your whole paycheck every paycheck. Okay? You're saving between 15 and 30% of that check every single month from the time you're 20 or 25 until the time you're 50 or 45. And if you do it that way, yes, you will be a millionaire, despite what happens to Bitcoin, despite what happens to fucking pudgy little penguins. You won't even need those, right? This is the best advice of all, right? This is how the rich people do it. The rich people aren't going around buying the latest and greatest garbage. They're basically living within their means. Sure, they might be, maybe they've got $10 million, but they're not buying a house for $5 million, right? They're buying a house for $500,000, and then they're letting the rest of that money work for them. If you do the math, right, you can do your math. You can figure out your retirement number very easily. You figure how much it is that your expenses are every year, right? So let's just bring up a scenario here on my other screen. It's not a difficult calculation, right? So we'll call it, we'll say your expenses are $5,000 a month, right? Let me make the font bigger here. $5,000 a month. You multiply that by 30, and that would be your retirement money. It's called the 4% rule. So it's at 1.5 mil. I don't need a calculator for this, but sorry, 150 grand. Because I need to multiply it by 12. My mistake. Times 30 times 12 1.8 mil. So this is your retirement. If you need to spend $5,000 a month on your expenses, then you can conceivably retire if you have $1.8 million, because then that in a savings account at 4% interest will yield you $5,000 a month, right? If you reduce this to $2,500 a month, i.e., reducing your living expenses, not buying a mansion, but instead maybe a smaller place, or maybe renting. If you don't have a family, what do you need to, you think that buying a huge place is a good investment, but if you pay for it in cash, it's great, but otherwise, all you've really got is the equity. So if you put 10% down, you only own 10% of it, right? And you're hoping that the price goes up, but nowadays the price has been going down, right? So this is a good way to look at life in general, right? If your expenses are $2,500, you can retire right now, even if you're 20 fucking years old, right? If you've got $900 or 900,000 and your expenses are $2,500 a month, you could retire right now forever, right? If your expenses were lower, $1,000 a month, which is pretty damn tough, but if you just divide this by 5, right? So you had 360 grand, and your expenses were $1,000 a month. You could retire right now, today, never work another day of your life. Another way to do this, and I'm seeing this more and more, is people are getting the fuck out of here, North America, and they're going to places where it's cheaper to live. I got a buddy at work from India, and he's going back, to see his folks. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm going to be fucking balling when I go there, because their income's like jack all. And I'm going to be like, here I'm poor, but over there I'm rich. So, keep this in mind and have this number, have it in your mind, have it as a goal, right? Reduce your expenses. Every single person, everybody. If you really look deep enough, there's things they can cut out that will allow them to reduce their expenses every month. And that doesn't, I'm not talking about stopping to do the things that you enjoy. I'm talking about cutting out dumb expenses, cutting the stupid Amazon purchases every freaking, it's on everybody's porch every day. And what do they really do? They just bought more shit, right? They open the box. Oh, wonderful. Oh, my cat doesn't like it. And they just keep it. They don't return it. They don't do it. Okay, that's it. It's just, there's another $40 gone. And you do that 3, 4, 5 times. Suddenly, you've spent $400, $300, $200 on fucking Amazon every month. And you don't realize that that's 25, 2 grand, 5 grand a year. Net income, not gross. So this is kind of what most people are doing in terms of how they live and why they stay broke, right? If you just break it down and make things normal, right? People want these highs. They want to get these. I need this fucking high. I need this feeling that I had when I was a kid. This buying this is going to give me this feeling. But eating this fucking cake is going to give me this. No, just be normal. It's okay. It's okay to be normal. It's okay to sit at home and be bored. There's nothing wrong with that, right? This is in fact what most people do. They're just not normal. They're looking for this euphoric moment, trying to grasp this euphoric moment that they felt once in their life when they were fucking banging some hoe or, playing whatever. some video game or out drunk with some people, and you just keep grasping for this moment, and you can never get it, and then you end up even lower and lower and lower because you keep grasping for it. You get yourself into more trouble. You get yourself drinking. You get yourself into eating a fucking pound of cake every freaking 2 days, and then you get fat, and then you get uncomfortable, and then you have, health problems, and then just be normal. It's okay to be bored. It's okay. You don't need the latest fucking anything, right? I have another friend who, he just got tired of winter. He's like, you know what? I'm fucking going to Mexico, and I'm going to whatever the town was. He said it's very nice, and it's all, expats and mostly Americans and Europeans, and everybody's working from home or from the beach, right? And he was renting, he said there was like hardly anything. There was a small kitchen. It was like a studio. The bed was there. The kitchen was there. I had fucking nothing, he said. Nothing. And I was the happiest I've ever been in my whole life. And of course here he's got his high-end car and this and has to look good, and right? But he said, I had fucking nothing, and I've never been happier in my life. So it shows you, a lot of these guys that are making their millions, they never started that way. You hear these stories of, oh man, they were living in their car, or, a modest living is fine, right? If you're keeping your expenses low, you're not doing it because you're cheap. You're doing it because you're smart, because you're savvy, right? Because you don't need every freaking company to sell you shit on fucking Facebook Marketplace and get sucked into it. No. And when all your friends are working till they're 65 and 70 and 80 years old, and you're on a beach and, somewhere tropical, and you've got a small little place, and you did it modestly, and you live normal, and you didn't buy all this shit, and maybe you didn't have a mansion like they did, but you had a small, reasonable house, which was more than enough for you and your wife and, your one kid, then who's laughing, right? You're laughing. You're the happy one, and it doesn't matter. I've said this a million times. It doesn't matter how you start. It's how you finish. Look toward the finish line. Look toward the future. You can't just be living for today, because before you know it, 5 years have passed, 10 years have passed, and tomorrow's already here. There's my rant for the day. Let's get into our stories. Bitcoin hits fresh all-time high record as Saylor and Kiyosaki want to buy more, they say. After a brief 2-day hiatus, the primary cryptocurrency stepped on the gas pedal once again, hitting a fresh peak to $119,500. The latest surge price came after Strategy's former CEO hinted about another purchase, while the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad said he's going to buy more ASAP. The new peak came minutes ago when Bitcoin jumped the aforementioned level of $119,500 after slipping back down to 117 yesterday. Today's surge seems somewhat unexpected, at least when viewed from a macroeconomic point of view. After all, the U.S. imposed a new set of tariffs against the EU, Mexico yesterday at a rate of 30%. Similar instances in the past resulted in price declines, not new peaks. Right, because nobody gives a fuck anymore. They're all desensitized for these tariffs. They knew it was coming. 3 months ago, they said July 9th. Well, there was 3 months to prepare for July 9th. So how stupid are people? This is what I was saying before. Like, why would the price drop, right? This has already been priced in. The dummies on Wall Street, there's probably, all that shit's probably going to drop because, they're working on multipliers of every stock of 25 to 1 right now. price to earning ratio. It's just way overblown. Bitcoin seems immune to Trump's global policy at the moment. The cryptocurrency added more than $11,000 since Wednesday when it stood calmly at 108 grand. And it was sitting at 108 grand for months, guys. It was flipping between 108 and 103, which it generally does for a while. It stays within a narrow range and then pops, which is kind of what happened again, right? This is no surprise. In the following days, the asset broke into the uncharted territory on multiple occasions, including Friday's peak of almost 119,000. You can check some of the possible reasons behind this impressive conclusion for the entire week here. I'm not fucking clicking your link. Earlier today, Michael Saylor, the co-founder and Bitcoin champion of Strategy B, hinted that the company had made another purchase recently after failing to announce a new buy last Monday, which is a rare occasion that he didn't buy last Monday. Strategy's purchase since the U.S. elections are announced each Monday, so please make sure to check our site tomorrow for updates. Before that, Robert Kiyosaki urged people to study Bitcoin as it could be your path to becoming a millionaire. Additionally, he praised the asset for trading above 117,000 at that time and said he was going to buy more ASAP. The author of the bestseller Rich Dad Poor Dad has become a prominent and vocal proponent of Bitcoin, advising people to invest more in it for several years. Yeah, so here's the chart. We've done enough charting, but Kiyosaki, if you guys haven't read that book, I have a lot of at least 5, 6, 7 books on financial literacy in the show notes for every show. I've got the free ebooks on there. Please do yourself a favor, and a lot of the topics we cover here are based on readings from some of these books. It gives you a very good understanding of basic economics and of financial literacy, and it's something that they don't necessarily teach you in school, even if you took economics, right? So if you want to do well, it doesn't matter if you're a janitor or a doctor or anything in between. You need some semblance of financial literacy. Those books, please, instead of listening to the same playlist over and over when you're driving to work, check out these free books. You'll know the titles right when you see them, and if you don't, once you read them, they'll be like, "Oh shit, this is good." Again, they're free. I have no affiliation with any of these people, but they are amongst the best all-time financial literacy books and basic economics books in history. Some of them are new within the past 5 years, and some are going back to 1940, 1930 something, written then, but they still hold as much value as they did back then, and they're not written in Old English or anything like that. And again, 100% free. If you like the ebook, the YouTube version, and you want to support them, by all means, go ahead and buy it. If there's a couple I've bought, but I make it a habit of finding the most purchased economics and financial literacy books ever written and read them with my time in the car instead of the same old playlist, which I must have listened to thousands of times for decades. That's my new go-to, is the doing two things at once, because you're in your car driving to work anyway. You may as well take full advantage of this stuff. So do yourself a favor and make yourself rich just by reading these books. Bitcoin to add another zero. 1 million Bitcoin advocates Samson Mao, and he says yes. 1 million Bitcoin is a matter of time. Samson Mao makes epic prediction. He has renewed his ultra bullish stance on the leading cryptocurrency, suggesting the next major milestone is no longer speculative, just a matter of timing. His latest post offers a long-term target of 7 figures for BTC, something that would require the asset to add a zero from the current levels around 118 grand. The comment comes as at a moment when Bitcoin's price action is starting to reflect the kind of ambition. On the weekly chart, Bitcoin has pushed through a key resistance zone and is now trading in the open air. This is its strongest weekly candle since May, with the breakout structure in place and things picking up. People are looking at what could be the next serious leg higher. Really, if we want to look at mini leg ups, I think the next real leg up, we need to break through about 120, then about 125, and I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of sits a little sideways for a bit, the way it usually does, and then it pops again. The chart shows that the weekly closes are going up, the lows are staying high, and there's no real overhead resistance until you get into the $150,000 range and above. Momentum indicators are turning bullish again, and trading volume is starting to follow the price, which is a classic setup for vertical expansion. Bitcoin's still got solid support behind the scenes with strong demand for ETFs, a lot of net inflows, and long-term holders selling less. On-chain data shows the supply held by illiquid wallets is growing, suggesting that most of the coins in circulation aren't looking to move anytime soon. The idea of Bitcoin hitting $1 million per coin isn't just a crazy idea anymore. It's being priced in slowly but surely, not just by the retail traders, but also by funds, desks, and macro allocators tracking the assets breakout in real time. Right now, it's less about if Bitcoin will add that extra zero and more about what will trigger the next phase of the run. Earlier Sunday, Bitcoin, the leading cryptocurrency by market cap, came awfully close to reaching the 120,000 level for the first time. It got to 119.5. Bitcoin Wise President Teddy Fusaro has noted that Bitcoin managed to reach a lifetime peak when the global capital and financial markets are closed. Welcome to the digital era. Yeah, it seems to do this on Sundays actually quite a bit. After giving up some of its gains, cryptocurrency is currently trading at 118.7. A gain of just 1% would finally allow the bulls to surge above this much coveted 120,000 mark. According to the polymarket bettors, Bitcoin has a 99% chance of remaining in the green on July 13th. There are also rapidly growing odds of the leading cryptocurrency hitting 120,000 before July 14th. Tomorrow, at press time, the website's bettors see a 36% chance of such a scenario unfolding. Just hours ago, for comparison, there was a 13% probability of Bitcoin reaching that price level. There's also a minuscule 2% chance of Bitcoin reaching 125 today, according to the Poly Market. 120,000 is almost certainly this month. A whopping 88% of bettors are convinced that the leading cryptocurrency will eventually be able to hit 120,000 this July. There's also a 25% chance that Bitcoin surging as high as 130,000 during this month. Some uber bulls, 2%, appear to be convinced that the flagship coin could massively outperform expectations by surging all the way to 150,000 as early as this month. So Polymarket is basically a betting site, but they are now known for being damn accurate. You weren't able to do it in the States, but they had bets on, will Trump win the election? And the odds are that he would, and he did. The Canadian election, same thing. The as much as everybody was saying this Polyev, the good candidate, was going to win, Polymarket was saying the opposite, that the shit candidate, Carney, was going to win, and Carney did win. So it seems that because people are actually putting their hard-earned money in this Polymarket, it's just not some fucking pseudo analyst, right? it's actual people betting their freaking hard-earned money, it seems to be pretty fucking accurate. You know, I never bet anything, but it's there for free if you want to check it out. You don't have to enroll or anything like that. You can check out, they've got odds for literally everything you can bet on. And prices of Bitcoin and closing prices and things like that are also, as we see, on that list as well. Hopefully you got some value out of the show, folks. I feel like we got through a lot of content today. Certainly remember, money is abundant and money's everywhere. There's, I believe, $800 trillion of assets in the world. So go out there and get yours. Spend less than what you earn. If you suddenly start making more money, don't start spending more money. Start saving more money, and start saving today. If you start saving when you're young, ideally you can retire when you're 40 or 45 and not 65 or 75 or 85 when you can't do the things you really want to do when you retire. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would help the channel greatly. I'm hoping to have over 500 subscribers by the end of the year, so please go ahead and do that. Please also like, comment, and share, and we will see you on the next stream, folks. It was amazing. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day.